Do you want to talk about how we connected in the first place? Because it's a really fun story and it's the power of Substack, the power of the internet, but specifically the power of Substack, because the way people think that come on here for the most part, I found like 95% of people are here for like a similar reason. And then there's, of course, the outliers, but you and I both have a, a similar outlook on treating people with kindness and living life in a joyful and happy way. And so I put out these kindness cards. And one of them was up at Intelligentsia in Silver Lake, Los Angeles. And you had a friend who saw it and sent you a text. And then you started following me on Substack. And then I reached out to you and you told me that that's how you found my account. And we're like all the way across the country from each other. And was, we talked about magic just a few minutes ago. That was a magic moment for me that we connected that way. So
100%.
that was super powerful.
Right. Let's take it beyond just technology and Substack and let's say connection, right? We connected because I have a connection with a dear friend. Her name is Lila. She came into my life at a very challenging time in her life and then stayed with me through a very challenging time in my life. So we like trauma bonded in a lot of ways and were support for each other when we needed that support. And she is a little bit of a jet setter. She's lived in LA and New York, and she has family in Brazil, and she's been overseas. She was stranded during COVID over in Bali, which is a great place to be stranded.
Oh, that's
Um, right. And so she knows the kind of business I'm in. She has supported me through the little library talks that I give. And she knows that I wanted to connect with people that are in the same space. So as soon as she saw that postcard, the first thing she did was send it to me. And the first thing I did was subscribe because I am all about kindness and community.
yeah. It was so cool to see your name pop up too. I'm like, who is this? You're a happiness ambassador. What is that? And I want to know more. So you just did that talk, and you're in St. Pete, Florida, and you did a talk for something called Nerd Night. And you had told me a little bit about it, but I want to know a little bit more, about what being a happiness ambassador is. It sounds like it's pretty self-explanatory, but there's so much more that goes into it. You've written a book, you have individual people who you're coaching now, and you're doing these talks. And you pivoted from having a full-time job at the beginning of this year. You left your job, right? That was the time frame. Okay. You're like, this isn't working for me anymore, and I want to switch things up. And you completely transformed your life, and you're in the midst of transforming it. And it's so cool and so inspiring. And I want to hear more about that whole journey.
Oh, absolutely. You have to go back 5 years to COVID. I think COVID was a big turning point for a lot of people. I've met people along the way, and I continue to meet people that have hit this like breaking point of I don't want status quo anymore. I don't want the cookie cutter path that I'm told I should want. So I when COVID happened, I had a very serious conversation with myself. I asked, like people my age are dying.
Mm-hmm.
There's no vaccine. No one knows what to expect. Am I happy with how I've lived my life? Like if I died tomorrow, would I be like, I did it. I lived a pretty good life. Before I even like finished the thought, the answer was no.
Mm.
The answer was so clear to me that I was spending too much time at work. I was working long hours. I wasn't seeing my friends. I wasn't really talking to my family. My hobbies were completely waylaid. And so I had to decide, well, what am I going to do with this information? The toothpaste is out of the tube. I cannot go back. I know that I'm not happy. How do I change that? And that led me down this path of self-improvement, self-discovery. I upskilled. I did some online courses for neurolinguistic programming, which is how we interface with our brain. How do we collaborate so we're not in this constant conflict? I think a lot of people struggle with negative self-talk and cynicism and just feeling like there's no hope in the world. And I don't want to live like that. So all of that put together, I saw some dramatic improvements in myself. So I was a very sarcastic,
Mm.
um, sometimes even mean-spirited person because I was like protecting my mental health by just repelling people.
Yep.
And what I have learned in my journey is that the opposite is the most successful thing you can do for yourself is bring people into your orbit that are like-minded, that share the same values, that are interested in growing. So I thought this worked for me. And I'm a process guy, I'm a change management guy. I think in process models. So when I wrote my book, The Blueprint to Happy,
Yep.
it's a 6-step process. You go in order. And there's also supplementary things because the the mechanics of retraining your brain, it takes effort. It takes time, it takes dedication, and it requires a little bit of a bridge to get there. So I also include mantras that help people kind of just reset and reframe in a more generic way. Things like 100% of zero is zero still. You can give of yourself, but if you don't fill your own cup up, eventually there will be nothing to give. And
Yeah.
then who helping? Those types of things help ground people. I have best practices for happiness, like get out in nature. You're stressed out, your nervous system is fried. Go take a walk with some trees, listen to the birds, enjoy the simpler things in life to more regulate your nervous system. And so the book was a great way for me to get all my thoughts on paper. But I found it's more powerful to meet people where they're at. That's why I do the speaking events. That's why I offer coaching services, why I do workshops for businesses and schools and affinity groups so that I can help people thrive in this world through that lens of positivity. We could talk more about why positivity is the thing, like the magic bullet, but that's the short-ish answer to what a happiness ambassador is. Generally, I help people build a lens to look at the world that is a positive lens rather than a negative.
Yeah, and I mean, we've all heard of like the 21 days to change a habit. I don't Is there anything to that? Like if you quit smoking, you're like, I'm going to quit smoking after 3 week, 21 days. Supposedly you like, well, I don't know. I've been a smoker before. I still had cravings way after that. But
Mhm.
is it kind of, have you noticed that there's like a specific set of time or like a time frame where people have really started to notice a difference as far as changing their negative thought patterns? Or I'm just curious.
It's a great question, and I've heard many numbers. I've heard 60 days, 21 days, 3 months, and truly it depends. And it's not a very satisfactory answer, but it depends on how deep
Like,
rooted the habit is,
yeah,
right? So the way that the brain works, we have this thing called neuroplasticity, and our neurons have a talking and a receiving end, and it has connections on each side of these neuron connectors that either grow or shrink based on how frequently or infrequently we do something. So we can change our habits based on doing the new habit more, which is going to shrink the old connections and grow the new connections. But the truth of the matter is, you will always have a little pathway. Think about it like a walking path. The more you go down it, the more well worn that path is. And eventually you might build a road and then you build a super highway because it's working for you. It's getting you to point A to point B where you want to go. So you continue to build on it. So if you dismantle that super highway and you tear it down, there's still this big path in your brain that still needs to shrink over time, but it's always going to be there. It'll always be there for you to go back to. So it's very important to build self-awareness.
yeah,
And by that I mean that's going to be your warning system to say, "Ooh, I'm falling into old patterns. Ooh, this is an old Adam thing, not a new Adam thing." And I can recalibrate based on that self-awareness that tells me I'm opening up an old path that I do not want to.
how much are you kind of pushing the idea of meditation, mindfulness, like any sort of practice in that arena?
That is part of my best practices in the book. There's 19 best practices. One of them is around meditation and also noticing the details. So when we get overwhelmed, it's usually because there's just more information coming at us than we can handle. And by focusing our attention on a very simple thing, it helps us to kind of reset. But meditation is a great tool to align our conscious mind, which is very limited. Our conscious mind can only process between 40 and 50 bits of data per second. Our subconscious mind can process 11 million bits of data per second. And
Wow.
it's it's a supercomputer and it's always in the background doing stuff. It's always rendering your reality, putting together information, looking for associations. Like the smell of a certain cologne might be dangerous to my brain, to my subconscious, because I had an ex lover who was abusive and wore that cologne. And so you react in a certain way. Your subconscious is what's responsible for paying attention to all that. And when you meditate, that's the time I love to meditate because I like to task my subconscious with requests. Hey, I got this talk coming up and the flow's not right. Like just think about the flow and how that could improve. And then when I meditate, that silences my conscious mind and allows my subconscious to show me the insights that it has put together over that period of time. Now, when we're actively engaged in activities like we're playing video games or we're watching TV or there's multiple conversations going, that really taxes our subconscious. It really, even though it's a supercomputer, it can only do so much. So it's having trouble creating memories. Sometimes people have trouble remembering things because there's so much going on, or they might be thinking really in a loop pattern. And so it's hard for the subconscious to integrate what's happening. And by meditating, you're creating a very tranquil place for your subconscious to communicate with you. Same thing with dreaming. Dreaming is a way that your subconscious communicates with you, but meditation is a much more intentional practice.
Yeah, I started meditating regularly 3 or 4 years ago, and I was so resistant to it for such a long time, and I think now we're living in the social media age, and people are constantly talking about how we never have to be alone because we have our devices with us, and we never have to just sit within our own thoughts if we don't want to, and it's really interesting when you surrender and you do start getting into a practice. And it doesn't have to be like a traditional sit down and be quiet thing. It can be I'm walking in nature. It could whatever works for the individual. I think is it used to feel like it was very rigid. Like I had to sit here. You can't move if you have it. If you have an itch, you can't scratch it. I have to sit here and be quiet and be like in pain because my itch is so whatever. But um, I think I've gotten some of the most interesting and magical messages when I have just sat and been quiet and allowed the tiny, it's not even a tiny voice, it's just a very quiet voice. It becomes so much louder when you just sit there and allow the space to happen and tell you whatever you need to know. And I've been able to let go so much more since I started doing it. So I would tell people who are contemplating whether or not they should have a practice to really dive into it.
Yeah. And, meditation it can be really tough. And I struggled with it for a really long time as well. And the truth of the matter is, not every brain, no brain is the same. And some people that especially that are in the ADHD space, they're going to really struggle with meditation. So I always recommend flow state. Flow state is very similar to meditation, and it's where you are consciously letting go and just moving in a space that's really familiar, there's some mastery there. So things like dancing, heck, even doing dishes can be a mindful meditation if you set that intention and you're just like, I'm going to quiet my brain and wash the dishes or scrub the floor. And it can be humbling to do stuff with your hands and to move your body, and like these acts of service can substitute for people that might struggle with meditation. I'm glad that you've gotten to a point where it's really working for you, because it's important for our subconscious and conscious minds to be aligned. I think we have a lot of unhappiness because they're not.
Yeah.
Uh, I talk in my talks about how if you want to build a happier life, you have to do what you say when you're talking about making positive changes. So if I say, I want to stop doom scrolling and I want to be in nature more, but then you continue to doom scroll for hours at a time, your subconscious cares more about the action that you do, not the words that you say. And then all of a sudden, not only am I still doom scrolling, now I feel shame about it. Now I feel
Mhm.
guilty because I'm not in alignment with what I said I wanted and what I'm actually doing.
That's
And
interesting. Yeah. That resonates super deeply because I've tried to kind of eradicate being shameful about as many things, which is very challenging to do because the messaging we get from society is one thing, and then we have our own thoughts that we're contending with too. But um, the doom scrolling thing also actually took my phone out of my bedroom for a while, for like a year. I wasn't looking at it before going to bed. And now that I am here in Virginia and I don't have my little sound machine that I have back in LA, I use my phone as my alarm clock. And so I've gotten back into this habit of looking at it before I go to bed. And I'm like, I trust myself. I know that I'll be able to stop doing that again because I've done it once. But yeah, I definitely have that shame thing that comes up too. I'm like, this is a thing I promised myself I wouldn't do, and here I am doing it again. So
Right.
yeah, and that I don't know if you know any of the science behind looking at screens before you go to bed and how that can affect your happiness and your peace of mind. But it's from what I've read, it's really not good to go to bed looking at screens.
Yeah, it's super not good for you. And it part of it is like just the color, like the light hitting your eyes before bed, that's going to happen no matter what. But it's probably bad for a much larger reason, which
Yeah.
is this thing called negativity bias.
Okay.
It means
Yep.
that our subconscious is a threat scanner, almost first and foremost. It's a survival imperative, and so it's always looking for the dangerous negative thing. And what that means in a world of scrolling, you have access to infinite negativity. And folks like advertisers and marketers and TV executives and all the people that are responsible for creating content and media, they know this. They know negativity captures attention. So it's good for their profit margin to put negativity in front of you nonstop. So in our brains eat it up like candy because we're drawn to it naturally. So that's I think part of the bigger reason why engaging in media so much is bad for us because the menu of things you could get into uh, takes you down this negative rabbit hole. Now, there are spaces online that are pushing back against this, which I love. Substack, I think, is one of them. It's obviously very eclectic, but there's tons of people on Substack who are writing about uplifting messages, you know, building tools and community so that we can make a new third digital space for people.
Yeah.
And I
And
know that that's a topic of interest for you.
yeah, even going beyond the digital space, the focus on community now, people pre-pandemic, we were able to gather. It was really easy, but we took it for granted. And then the pandemic happened. And then we said, what? I want to hang out with my friends, but I can't because we always want what we can't have. And so seeing, we're seeing this interesting duality happen between digital spaces, a breakdown of social media, especially with the younger generation, like Gen Z. A lot of them are glued to their phones, but I would say the people who are glued to their phones more sometimes are the older generation, because Gen Z is having this realization that, hold on, this is not normal. We don't know a world where we don't have a smartphone or we don't have technology, and we're starting to question what this is all about. And we want to go and do things like meet up with friends or I don't know, go for a bike ride or something. Like there's more analog happening alongside the digital. And so you and I were talking about the third places, third spaces, and you just went to Michigan for a month and you ended up meeting some really wonderful small business owners who are focused on community. And maybe you want to talk about that and them a little bit because I think maybe we're going to have a conversation with them in the next.
Yes, we plan on doing a little Substack live with them on Monday, I believe at 6 p.m. So those are on take note.
Yes.
So I like to go to Michigan for the summer because I live in Florida and it makes sense to get out of here when it's so hot and there's hurricanes swirling around. But I had the pleasure of staying in a very small town called Maple City, which is right next to Cedar. And Cedar is the downtown is an intersection that has a gas station, food store, a cafe, an ice cream shop, a Polish Heritage Center, and then this folded leaf bookstore, which is brand new. I just read the write up that they did at the Northern Express up there, and they talked about how the business owner Rachel and her business partner Kim saw this place on a snowy day in February, saw the for sale sign, looked in the window, and was like, I could make this work. They
Yeah.
were they were open by May. Like so from February to May, they made this amazing space. And so when I found it, I'm naturally drawn to bookstores. I'm as you can see in my background, the, the screen's not wide enough, but there's tons of books behind me.
There are books. I saw them earlier. Yeah.
Anyhow, I walk in and it's this beautiful, rich green, painted walls, floor to ceiling, just tons of beautiful art and decor and very well curated and a little fireplace and a stage with a piano. And immediately I'm like, I love this place. I looked at Kim and I said, how long have you been here? And she said, 2 months. And I said, wow, how can I help you stay in business? Because I want this to be here every summer that I come up.
Yeah.
And I offered to read tarot cards for free just to like be something that brings people in. I don't think they need my help, honestly. Like they have figured out live music events, community events, and in this write up, and Rachel told me herself, her big impetus for doing this, and I'm not going to go too much further into it because I want her to tell a story, is she wanted that third place. She wanted to build community and a safe place for people to relax and meet each other and a place where they feel like it's cozy. And this is doing good things for my nervous system. So
Good. Well, and I assume that they are very inclusive and everybody is welcome. And yeah, okay. That's good.
very
I can't imagine that you would have, like, knowing the little bit that I know you, I'm like, there's no way that you would have gone if they weren't like that. But like me,
yes.
really want to support anything unless I feel like we're kind of on that same wavelength. But um yeah, I want to hear. So you're back down in St. Pete where you live full time. And you just had a big, like, an amazing event happen where you were speaking in front of, it looked like hundreds of people. I don't know how many people. I'm terrible. Like, if I talk about a music venue, I'm like, yeah, I don't know. It could be 500, it could be 2,000. I don't know cap is. I don't know how many people fit in this space. I can pack a trunk really well, but I don't know about like humans in a space kind of thing. But it looked like there were a lot of people there. Um, so you were chatting at something called Nerd Night, and it looked like you were adding in your conversation around the science behind happiness. I just want to hear more about that because we decided we weren't going to talk about it too much until we got on here. So
Yeah.
tell
Thanks
everybody.
for asking. Yeah, I'm still kind of processing it on. I'm wearing my Nerd Night shirt because I am obsessed with this event. I found out about it before I went on my summer vacation. I found out about it and went to the April Nerd Night, and it's global, so we could probably find a Nerd Night in your town, and please do. They're
what,
amazing.
what is Nerd Night exactly?
Nerd Night is a speaking event. Our Nerd Night has three speakers, and it's the last Tuesday of every month, and it's usually monthly. Your town will probably be different. I went to the one in Traverse City when I was up in Michigan, and they were on Thursdays.
Okay.
And St. Pete Nerd Night, when I went, I'll be honest and say I expected it to be like 20 dudes in a like D&D t-shirts, thought it was going to be like very niche. And I got there and it was like the who's who of St. Pete. I mean, it was packed out. It was a big venue. The speakers are all that's required to speak at Nerd Night. Is you got to fill out a proposal form, and you just have to be really passionate about something that you are capable of providing some sort of educational content.
Okay.
It's a 15-minute speaking block followed by a 5-minute Q&A, and then there's 15 minutes in between speakers so that you can talk about what you just learned. You can go fill up your drink. You can try to talk to a speaker, get some more questions in. And it's just a beautiful sharing of passion and information. And so I thought, I'm a longtime nerd. Long time nerd. This is perfect for me. So before I left for Michigan, I put in my speaker application. I said, I'll be back in August. And they got back to me right away. And I was like, yes, we love it. We want to hear about the neuroscience of happiness, which was my pitch title. And so all during my vacation, like I'm thinking about what I want to put together. I put together a presentation. I do tons of preparation for it. I skid into town like on Saturday, and then the talk is on Tuesday. So very small margins here to kind of like get reacquainted and like meet up with all my friends and get back into town. But it was just absolutely lovely. Cool thing about our Nerd Night, the event that I went to had at least 300 people in
Okay.
it. And
That
I
was
know that you're
okay.
right. I know that because the venue was the James Museum downtown St. Pete, which is a beautiful place. Highly recommend. It's focused on Western art with a focus on Native Americans in particular. It's very respectful, very beautiful, very moving. And they have a venue there called the Mesa Room, and they can seat 420 people in that banquet hall kind of space. But because of the seating, I think it was probably less than 420 people. But it sold out within 3 days.
Amazing.
So, yeah, I got the notice that tickets were on sale and I put it out to all my friends and family. I said, get them quick. They've been selling out. This is the biggest venue yet, so maybe they won't. But I went back 3 days later and they were sold out. So within that 3 days, there was a big run. Helps that the tickets are only $5, which is great. Opens up that access to anybody who wants to, has $5 to spend and wants to go. And I was the first speaker. I had the amazing privilege of getting to share my passion for 15 whole minutes. I
Wow. It
I
probably
wanted
by.
it does. It does. Like I had a lot of anxiety because I could talk. Like I've done library talks that have been an hour long and I can absolutely talk for over an hour on this stuff. So I had to condense it and I was like, what is the most important message I want to give to people? And I ended up making this connection between our negativity bias. Everybody wants to be happy. And I kind of polled everyone. Like, everyone here wants to be happy. Pointed out that happiness is different for everyone. And rightfully so. All of our mind maps are different. So it makes sense. And the thing about that is that we have a couple of things working against us. We have this natural negativity bias, which makes us go to bed thinking about that one bad thing that happened, even though 10 good things happened that day. You're
Yeah.
giving your brain space to that one bad thing. And the way that our brains evolved is it wants us to deal with it, not just pay attention, but it wants us to hit it with a stick, run away, freeze, make friends with it. It wants us to do one of those 4 fear responses to negativity. But in our modern society, never before have we had so much access to so much information as we do now. And like I said, all the people in power know about negativity bias and they're using it to capture your attention and your dollars. So that was the narrative I wanted to put in. Like, this is our challenge. This is our challenge, folks. But we have this amazing thing called neuroplasticity, which is the physical way that we can change our minds. And then I provided 3 tips for how you can do that. I talk about knowing your mind map, which is the lens that you look through the rest of the world. It's created on your first 5 years of data, your first 5 years of living. That is what your mind map uses as a foundation. So I challenge people, think about where you were at 5 years old. You didn't have any control over who you were with, what you did. You had negativity bias in play. You had media in your life. That's
Yes.
the foundation. So it helps to know what's going on there.
And
I
you're
gave a lot.
far from being fully developed at that point. Yes.
Do you know the age that your prefrontal cortex is fully developed?
24, right? Is it 24?
30.
It's 30. So, okay, this
30.
thing, it's interesting because I've thought about this before with the drinking age being 21, and we're basically creating there's this block that we're creating with our frontal lobe development with drinking alcohol, right? And so I'm like, how much smarter could I possibly be if I had never had any alcohol before the age of 30? Anyway, I digress.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, 30. And it makes sense. I feel like a lot of people hit their stride after 30. Like the
Yeah.
20s are like you're bumbling around in the dark and like just figuring things out and doing your very best. And you're gathering more information, you're trialing and erroring your mind map. But it's really not until 30 and after that you have the executive function, like the
Yeah.
ability to be disciplined, to plan, to future cast based on what you're going to do now and imagine what that looks like a year, 2 year, 3 years from now.
Right. Okay, but wait, we're going back to age 5 right now. So that's when you're building your mind map, right? And then I kind of talked about the frontal lobe at that point. So let's go back to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So from 0 to 5, you're gathering data. Like you're born with 100 billion neurons, like out of the gate. You have 100 billion neurons of gray matter storage to fill up. And
Okay.
for the first 5 years, your brain grows to about 90% of its full size, of the size it'll be your entire life. That's a pretty fast, rapid development. And the data goes in kind of like your junk drawer or your catch-all closet. Like it's indiscriminate. You just log all the information. And some information is bigger and brighter. Like I almost drowned at Adventure Island. Like that's a big important data point for me. Or like I had my third birthday and nothing eventful happened, so that's like a smaller data point. And
Yeah.
then from the ages of 5 to 25, you reorganize your brain. Like your brain goes through this massive construction project where you purge all the things you think you won't need to survive adulthood. So that third birthday uneventful, that goes. That's why you don't remember that. You remember the big stuff.
Interesting. Okay.
And then your white matter increases. So the gray matter is the data, the white matter is what connects the data. So by white matter increasing, we're creating associations. When this happens, this is the reason it happened, whether or not that's true. So you are absolutely capable of having a false narrative, right? To say, again, like the cologne example, this cologne, I smell this cologne, it means bad people. That's
Yeah.
not true, but your brain thinks it's true because that's your lived experience. So that's part of what you can root out by knowing your mind map is to say, is that a true thing to me in my adult life, or is that just an experience that I had, and so I created this worldview because of that one or couple
Yeah.
of
Well, and there's the examples of people who look at a photograph and they think that they remember the memory around the photograph, but you wonder, is it just that they're building an idea of what they think happened versus, and it's like we don't have to go so deep in. It's fine. Like if it's a happy memory, just let it be in there, you know?
right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. This is really cool. Okay, keep going. I'm interested in the science.
Yeah. So once you go through that reorganization process from 5 to 25, instead of looking like a junk drawer, now it's organized. Now you pull the drawer open and everything's in its place and like things are together, like all the tapes are together and all the pens are together. And now you have like this mind map that is basically the way that you perceive the rest of the world. And it is extremely unique to you. There is no two mind maps that are the same. And this is why my business is called Mind Map Renovations, because I'm
Mm,
offering to help you renovate this mind map, to pull things out, examine them, determine what's true, what is, was true at some point, but that's not true now. So I don't want to put it back. I want to take that out for good. So my way of helping people is to be more intentional about how they see the world and to make sure that it tips more positive than negative for lots
yeah.
of beneficial reasons.
I love the name of your business too, because I had seen it before, but now that you've explained all of that, it makes so much more sense and it's really brilliant.
Thank you.
Um, but yeah, so you talked about this in your chat, and then
Yes.
what was the reaction afterwards? Have you gotten, it sounds like maybe you've gotten some more connections or clients or something since
Yeah.
that. Feels like
Yeah.
are going in a very good direction for you.
Yeah, I found as I talk about this that people it resonates with people very much. I think folks are a little starved for positivity right now. They're over the doom and gloom. They want a way forward, and that's always something that frustrated me about the self-help industry. Is I always felt like the books talked, for like 80% of the book about like this is the study, these are the use cases, this is what we learned. Yeah, everything is garbage. And then like that last 15 to 20% is like, now you can try these couple things. My book is inverted. My book is like, here's some background and then here's what you can do to make your life better, which is like 75% of the book instead of the other way around. And I I will say I'm still learning the fine art of self-promotion because I had many times in my Nerd Night talk that had over 300 people in the audience to mention my book, and I didn't. I
That
even had
you
I
only
even
have 15 minutes, you know?
well, I had people come up to me afterwards too and ask even for book recommendations, and I was so excited and geeked out about like all the cool books I've read. Like I rattled off a bunch of books that weren't mine. So I
I'm wondering
what's that?
about Phil Stutz, probably.
Probably, yes. Big fan of Phil.
You're like, I blacked out. I don't remember anything I said.
Yep. I do remember what I said. I have weird feelings about self-promotion that I'll have to get over if I want to be a business person, which is almost secondary to just my main purpose of helping people live better lives.
Yeah, I think that there's a way that you can do because that resonates with me a lot. Like the whole building a personal brand thing was considered to be icky or cringy or something until more recently. And so I think that speaking of mind maps, I think that our wiring was that this is not something you do. You want to stay humble. You want to not like promote yourself too much because then you might sound like you're bragging or there's some weird stuff that's deep rooted with that.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true.
so you have to rewire your path so
Do
promote and not feel weird about it. I think
right.
it is a muscle because if you keep doing it and you get over the one little thing, like each incremental thing that is making you feel uncomfortable or it feels cringy or something, after you do it a few times, then it won't feel like that anymore. And even if it does, you stop caring.
100%. We're kind of, it's interesting because we're kind of novel seekers. Like humans love new things so long as they're good, but we're also very afraid of change. It's like a weird paradox to exist in.
Yep.
But once you familiarize yourself, then a lot of the fear and the stigma goes away. And I think about it like a constant garden. I don't think I'll ever run out of things to improve on myself. And I don't think that should be the goal. I think we get trapped a lot when we think if I do this, then everything will be fine forever and ever. Amen. That is, that's not working in our reality.
Well, I told you about the time to bring up Phil Stutz again because we both love him so much. I told you about that one session that I had with him. I've talked about this so many times. I'm like, who have I told and who have I not? But he is so special just as a therapist and as a human being. Um, because I've had so many sessions with one, like I'll have like 2 to 3 years with one therapist. And my 1 hour session with him was more pivotal than 2 years of sessions with the other therapist. Thanks, Peter. It was good to see you. Good to see your chats. He li- this is one of my friends from LinkedIn who's now over here on Substack. Um, but I remember he said to me that I had this idea, just meeting me after 5 minutes. He's like, "You have this idea that once you reach this picture perfect life, that there's no more suffering, everything is going to be easy and you don't have to try anymore." He's like, "The second that you can remove that mentality from your mind, you're going to be so much happier." And it took me years to really understand and digest that. I was 30 when I went to see him. So my friend was just flipping. Right. I was like, I thought I was 24, but I guess not. Um, yeah, so he told me that and I've taken that, stored that in my back pocket and I bring it up like as often as I feel like it seems like an appropriate time to bring it up because I think so many people do that. They have this idea that if I just get to if I get to a certain point, I don't have to learn more things or I don't have to grow anymore because I will have made it. But we literally are still growing and learning things until the day that we depart this like
We're lucky. That is my goal is to be learning until I'm on my deathbed. Like I want to be like reading a book and be like, oh, that's interesting, and then die.
yeah, you're in your sleep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that too.
that's what I hope too. Um,
Mm.
do you want to go back to chatting a little because I feel like there's a lot of people who are doing reevaluations right now with their career, with their life, whatever it is. Post pandemic, we're in a weird moment with technology. There's the imminent fear of AI taking over every facet of our lives. Um, so there's so much focus on like the pendulum swinging back the other way and there's so much focus on human connection on the other side of that and analog and slowing down but I think this is causing people to really contemplate what their bigger purpose is and where they want to be putting their time and so you and I both left our jobs, our full-time jobs that are otherwise comfortable. I was working for Red Bull Media House until April last year and then you told me that you left your job in January of this year. And I initially started off kind of peddling something that was in my career field, photography and visual arts and stuff. Um, but I've since decided that like something has not been working within that world for me. And I think it's because I'm being called to something else. The universe is like, you have a different purpose than that. And now you need to explore something else. And things have kind of lined up in a way where I've had time and space to be able to explore. But I think there's a lot of people who are contemplating taking a leap of faith, leaving their job, trying something new. And I wonder if there's any kind of advice or any kind of takeaways that you have with getting up the courage and like just doing it and saying, I'm gonna try this and see what happens.
This is an excellent dovetail, Kelly, into my magical morning that I had.
Yeah, magical.
I will say, when you quit your job, and I hope that you do, if you don't like it and you want to do something more impactful, please, you have me on your side. It's really hard in the beginning. You second guess yourself. Your brain is used to doing a certain way. So your brain's freaked out a little bit. Like, what are we doing? We don't have a map for this. This is all uncharted territory. It's going to be very wary of it. And so you just build that in. Build in that there's going to be a month to maybe 3 months where you're like really second guessing your decision. But I will say one of the things that I've done to kind of ground myself in this decision is I have just become hyper local. I'm going to every local event that I can that's hosted by the city or the Chamber of Commerce or local groups, nonprofit or otherwise. I'm just meeting people. And this has been amazing. And this is how I know I'm not alone. I've met you, Kelly, and I've met so many other people that are doing exactly what we're doing. I met a wonderful person today who was in New York and ended up quitting her high powered tech job, moved to Mexico to reset, and is now in St. Petersburg. And she's in the AI space. She's trying to understand how do we make AI work for us? Because truly technology is an extension of us and we get to control that to some degree. How can we build guardrails? How can we elevate the conversations about it? How can we better understand the relational aspect of AI and humans? And in addition to that, like we went to this networking event, we met there, and then I was like, let's go get some breakfast afterwards. And then we had some breakfast, and then we walked around. Went to a cafe where we found other people that had been at the networking event having a conversation about wanting to get out of the rat race and not being happy with the way that things are going and wanting to do something with more passion in their lives. And, like, what's the point of money if all you have is money? Like, it's a means to an end. Like, you can't even use it because you're so busy and drained and tired. And so it was just a magical confluence of people that are willing to take the chance, who are actively having these conversations, who are thinking about how tech features into all of this. And I had a really great conversation. Just to go back to the tech piece real quick, and I mentioned this in my Nerd Night talk, the iPhone turned 18 in June of this year.
Wow.
It is just now old enough to vote.
Yeah. Or
It has,
I guess, yeah.
yeah, and of course the internet's been around longer, but we didn't have it in our pocket before the iPhone. So we've only had 18 years to adjust to having this technology in our pocket, and the technology is rapidly evolving faster than our brains can keep up with, because our brains have been evolving for over 200,000 years. We are much better at the fear response than the discerning between the nuance of how AI talks to us. So there's a lot of catching up to do. And we were talking about disruptive technology throughout history and how it's been studied. For example, the radio, when it came out, was one of the things that enabled Hitler's rise to power. Because it was new, it allowed Hitler to be in every single living room that had a radio. It was reaching multiple people. And the way that our brains work, if we see something, we believe it's true.
Mm-hmm.
We are trained to say if it's physical and I can touch it or I can hear it. And that's why visual effects can really mess with our brains, because like we've created a filter to visual effects now because it's been around long enough for us to be like, oh, that's visual effects.
Right.
But there's still part of our brains that believe it's true. And so when the radio came out, that enabled Hitler. Twitter enabled Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Like, these disruptive technologies are very volatile before we can build filters for them. So that's where I see us with AI. We have not yet built a filter for AI. And I think the minute we do, it's going to be out of date because AI is advancing so quickly that we've got to figure out a way to keep up with it. And one of the things that I absolutely advocate is unplug. Just take some reality dips, like just center yourself. Have like a regular centering process that allows you to recalibrate, right? The way our brain is being manipulated by these technologies.
Yeah. And we get so caught up in the habit, the habitual component of scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. We get so carried away, we don't even realize that we've been on TikTok or whatever for an hour and a half or something. But our body does. Our nervous system does. Our mind does.
Our subconscious does.
Yeah. And I don't know, I feel like you are so self-aware and so interested in learning about yourself and how you function. Do you ever feel your brain actually buzzing? Like, do you ever feel that? It's that nervous system reaction, but I can feel when my brain is just very overworked just from looking at a screen. And then when I sit and I close my eyes and I take a few deep breaths and I just like really go inward, I can feel it's like I snap myself out of it. And maybe that's attributed to the fact that I have been doing a regular meditation practice and I can kind of go into it more quickly, but it doesn't take much. So sometimes I'll actually turn my phone off for half a day, or a few months ago, I turned it off for 2 days or something. And it was like this miraculous thing, this like huge feat of turning my phone off, And like, we've existed for how many eons without these things? And now we are so addicted to them. It's not good for our health for sure.
My phone has been on silent for years. I
Me,
miss so many phone calls because it doesn't ring because I refuse to be a slave to my phone. I did that after I realized I was on my phone a lot, and the minute I put it down, it would buzz again, and
oh,
then I would up immediately without even thinking. And I think that that technology is built in to where it withholds notifications until you put it down because it's got cameras and sensors and it knows whether or not you're looking at it. And so, like, nope. And I still look at my phone plenty. Do not get me wrong. I'm not a saint in this regard, but I think it's so important to have these conversations, Kelly, because it builds the language that we can use to understand what's happening to us. And so what you're describing is cognitive load. You're hitting, critical mass with your cognitive load when you are just taking in this nonstop information. And it's not just with your phone, it can be any situation. And you can either choose to notice when you hit your cognitive load and like make a conscious decision to step back or to change or to break it. Or if you're not that self aware, you're just going to start lashing out. You're going to start getting angry at the people around you, or you'll withdraw, or you'll start to get depressed. You'll have these like survival responses. Your brain's trying to get you to do something to address the cognitive load, but unless you have the language and you know what's happening, it's going to be harder. Just a benign example, I went to Scotland in May, which was beautiful. Had a great time. I went for a wedding. All the museums are free there, so like a nerd like me is like kid in a candy shop. I didn't even get to like the last two levels of the National Scottish Museum because I was so overwhelmed with all the information, all the new information I have just recently taken in. I had to leave. We had plenty of time. We could have stayed, but I'm like, my brain is full. I've hit my cognitive load. Time to go walk in a garden. And then we went to the Royal Botanical Gardens, which was beautiful and lovely and a great, nervous system reset. But that could have gone differently. I could have like my day could have been ruined because all of a sudden I have this negative attitude, but I don't know why. So that self-awareness is key.
and the museum you were visiting probably is analog for the most part too, right? So it's not
Yeah.
about the screen, even though almost all of us are going from one screen to another a lot of the time. But yeah, just the information overload. And
Yeah.
even when you're out in nature, you're still gathering information. It's just in a very different version. So
It's more familiar to our brains because we've spent way more time in nature as a species than we have in houses, in museums, looking at phones. It's calming to our nervous system because it's familiar.
yeah. Thank you, Annette. Annette is one of my very dear friends, and she's saying, amazing convo. She actually has a son who's about I think, is he turning 6 or is he 5? I think he's turning 5. Turning 5? I don't know. But as you were telling me or telling everyone um, about the mind map up until 5, I was imagining him with all of the changes that he goes through so quickly, and it's really cool to be I'm sure that that was really interesting to her too as a mom, um, because
Yeah,
we
by the way, for parents out there, cut your teenagers some slack. Their brains are literally going through reconstruction. It's not their fault they can't remember things. It's there's only so much you can do.
yeah, it's I know. They're all so oh, he's turning 5, yeah. Oof, oh my god, I know, I can't believe it. My husband Curtis and I are we don't have kids, but, like, half of our friends at this point, or maybe a few more than half of our friends have young kids. Some of them are now on to their 2nd kid. But it's been so cool to experience friendships with kids too, and they get incorporated into our life also. I'm always like, "Yeah, bring your kid. Your kid is welcome, unless you need a break." Like, you
Takes a village.
so, um, but yeah, I am so excited to continue these conversations. You have impressed me so much with the amount of information that you've gained just from being curious, basically, I'm sure. Like,
Mhm.
the being able to back up everything you're saying with the science is really, really important because there are a lot of people who are, um, really skeptical in general, and I think if you can come with facts, then not everyone is like woo woo or spiritual. They're going to be like, oh, if I do this, then this will happen. 2 plus 2 equals 4. And so you can also incorporate in the part of yourself that is more aligned with the universe and spirituality while you're delivering these facts. So you're a triple threat. I don't know, a threat, whatever it is at this point.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so glad I have this opportunity because I think our society has evolved to where people are kind of paid to not follow their passion.
Yeah.
They their time is a commodity and they're giving it to an employer that's not interested in creativity or collaboration. They just want results and profit, and that's why I'm a big supporter of like a universal basic income model, so where people could follow their passions. And I think we could probably cure cancer and solve a lot of problems if people had the time and space and the psychological safety to follow what they really care about. Because that's all I've done is I've just gone down the rabbit trail of, oh, this is interesting. Oh, that's even more interesting. Ooh, I can apply this here. And look at where it's led me.
Yep. I know. And you're you're betting on yourself, you're trusting in the process, and I think you just have this awareness that if you keep on the path, on the in the bunny trail, you will end up somewhere way cooler than you ever would have and help so many more people and be so much more impactful than if you had just stayed the course.
Yeah. I want to believe that's true of anybody who's willing to follow their passion. And there are a lot of them. I think 2020 kind of broke open like an egg, like
Yes.
it gave people the time and space to introspect, kind of like what I did. And it might people like me were like immediately like changing paths, but I think other people have just been simmering and now they're kind of hitting this tipping point of like, I'm ready to try something different. And I think going to my more woo-woo side, I think that when you do that, the universe supports you. The universe will find ways to give you resources, to connect you with people that will help your cause. I've seen that in my own journey. I mean, I've met tons of people that not only are interesting and doing cool stuff, they want to help me do cool and
Mm,
interesting stuff, and I want to help them do cool and interesting stuff, just like me and you. Like this is because we are two people wanting to make a positive difference in the world, and we're just gonna go do it. We're gonna try and see what works, and
yes.
you got to start somewhere.
Right, and that goes back to the community aspect is in general, people want to help. People are supportive. There's 1% of people who are not, but and that you could unpack more about that of why somebody would be guarded on that. They probably just could benefit from some therapy or something, but in general, humans are here to support one another, and people like to be asked to help. And so hopefully that will that will just perpetuate, and we can have more of these conversations and feature more community, like small businesses and community folks. And yeah, anyway,
Yeah.
I'm really excited for this being
Yes.
our first convo.
I agree. One message I'd like to leave folks with, because sometimes I get some pushback on the whole, like, can you really be happy in times like now? And I think it's valid. And the way that I see it is we're going through a big destruction period. Like literally things all around the world are literally exploding and blowing up, and it's very sad and tragic and unavoidable at this point. It's happening. We have to accept that it's happening, but after every destruction, there is a rebuild.
Yes.
There's a rebirth, and people like me and you and the folks that I'm meeting and the people that feel called to build a future that they would be happy to see their kids grow up and thrive in. This is our time. Like, yeah, it's breaking. Sucks that it's breaking. Maybe it was meant to break,
Yeah.
but this is our golden opportunity to get to the rebuilding faster than anybody else, which is
Yep.
why it's so important to build community and coalitions now so that you can be part of building the future that you are enthusiastic to live in. Not just, you have to drink a cup of coffee to even think about starting your day, like that you wake up energized to live.
Yeah. And you can find joy in every single day. Even if it's just a little bit of time, you'll find it no matter what. So,
Yes.
okay. Well, we will be back here at 6 p.m. Eastern time on Monday with some other guests, as long as we can figure out the technical component. Just we'll figure it out. Substack's pretty easy. But yeah, I'm so happy that people came and hung out and asked some questions and offered up their input.
More to come. We have lots of hours of conversation ahead of us.
Yes, for sure. All right. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye, Kelly. Bye, everybody. Thanks for
Bye.
tuning in.
Bye, Adam.